collection of poems, in fact, called The Silex Scintillans, which means the sparking flint, the flint from which the spark comes. And of course it comes when it's struck. It comes from the heart and is the spark that is involved in and nourished by suffering. Then I think of that phrase of Wordsworth after his brother was drowned in the Abergavenny, I think it was. A deep distress hath humanized my soul. And thinking of water, one would think of the Tao, the flow of life, which is not far from a kind of world soul, really, and the flow that is in Heraclitus, where everything is flow at the heart. Of course, in Heraclitus you get imagery both of flow and of fire. Heraclitus has everything. And I remember also a wonderful film, which I thought was just too complicated to show you a clip of that tonight, but I'm very fond of a number of films by Andrei Tarkovsky. One of them I'm thinking of is Solaris. If you think you've seen Solaris because you saw a terrible American film made in the 1990s, you haven't. You need to see the Russian film made in, I think, 1974, which is, I think, one of the most moving and philosophically fascinating films ever made. And it really shows somebody through the imagination of somebody that loves them, and through their being imagined, and through their experience of suffering, actually growing a soul and coming to life. It's a science fiction film. It's extremely eerie, and it's extremely beautiful. So there's a sort of resonance that brings this soul to life between the two characters, Chris and Khani, in that story. And I think that's a good image of how we grow a soul, if we do grow a soul, in this resonant area. But we need to have a sort of disposition, and perhaps that is the soul. Perhaps the soul is a disposition towards life, a disposition that's both rapt and reflective and makes a living process possible, that opens a space. And here James Hillman, another disciple, if you like, of Jung, says, I think, putting it rather well, the soul is less an object of knowledge than it is a way of knowing the object, a way of knowing knowledge itself. So it's not really a thing, it's a disposition, a manner, an attitude, a way of being, and a process, it seems to me. And it isn't contrary to the body, although when in the past it was conceived, one died, this soul was the thing that was left over, as it were. And I'm at the college at Oxford, of which I'm lucky enough to be a Quondam Fellow, is called All Souls. Its full name is All Souls of the Faithful Departed. In fact, I think it's of the Faithful Departed at Agincourt. But that is the idea of the soul as what's left of people once they've died. And of course that is a very rich idea, and I'm not dismissing it. But it does rather lead to the idea that it's something separate from the body. Incidentally, those who don't like the college take great pleasure in pointing out that the French for All Souls College is Collège des Morts. But once again, Wittgenstein put his finger on it when he said the human body is the best picture of the human soul. And the soul is intangible, perhaps, but still embodied. And in every culture, images of breath, force, or motion, such as in Greek, pneuma and psyche, ideas of breath, and the same ideas exist in Hebrew, which is not a language I know, but there are the words, I believe, ruach and nefesh, which are words for soul, which are derived from the idea of breath. And of course that is the image of God making man by breathing soul breathing his soul into the clay, into the living clay. And without that, the soul becomes something rather nebulous. Without that embodied nature, it becomes terribly tenuous. And it reminds me of Hadrian's description of his soul as animula, vagula, blandula, that poor little wavering, vague and sort of smooth little creature that slips away out of your mind. So it's important to remember that the soul is embodied, and it's deep also in instincts and intuitions, which is probably one of the ways whereby we contact it. And one shouldn't try to cut those out of the idea of the soul in order to make it noble. There was in the Nazi era, as you know, great festivals for the burnings of books, and Freud's books were among those that were consigned to the flames. And those who threw the books into the fire were enjoined to chant the following words: in defiance of the soul-corroding glorification of instinctual life, and in the name of the nobility of the human soul, I commit to the flames the writings of Sigmund Freud. C.S. Peirce, an American 19th century philosopher who was also a logician and mathematician and who I very much admire, wrote in an article which became a lecture and was beautifully entitled "Detached Ideas on Vitally Important Topics." It is the instincts, the sentiments that make the substance of the soul. Cognition is only its surface, its locus of contact with what is external to it. The eyes are, we say, the windows of the soul. We see somebody's soul in their eyes, and in portraiture too, there is a sense of contact with the soul. And we can't quite get away, can we, from this idea, I don't see why we should, because it's very deep in us, that something comes out of the eyes, not just goes into it. It's present in almost every culture and in every language. What I quite like is the Hasidic idea of soul, in which there are two distinct souls. They remind me somewhat of a couple of hemispheres I once described. One is the animal soul, which is all about self-preservation and self-enhancement. And the other is the divine soul, which is driven by the desire to reconnect with its source. And our lives are the story of the interplay of these two souls.